Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in and liking and sharing these videos. Remember, if you want to get the notifications as soon as these things go live, remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and especially on Facebook, make sure you click the notification button so that you get the notifications as soon as we go live. And you can be a part of the conversation as the live chat is taking place. Also, you can subscribe to our podcast. All you have to do is follow the link in the description of this video to anchor.fm /Coffee with Craig, and it'll take you right to where you want to be. And you can find all of the various different places where you'll find it. Apple, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. We got at least 9 different services. So make sure you guys check that out. Also, fpcgear.com. That's fpcgear.com. So you get cool t-shirts like this, as well as a number of other brand new designs. We've got hoodies out now as the weather's starting to get a little cooler. We even have coffee mugs. So check them out. Go to fpcgear.com. Know that every penny that you spend there goes right back into the fight for our constitutional right to keep and bear arms. And guess what? You get to look good doing it. So that's fpcgear.com. All right, so today we're going to be talking about something that you guys, honestly, a lot of you have probably already heard about this. A lot of you have already discussed this. But with all of the topics that we've kind of had stacked up, it's been a little difficult to get to. So I'm just now getting to it. But many of you watched the confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh, who's been nominated to the Supreme Court. A lot of you, maybe you haven't watched it, but you probably heard about this particular exchange that took place. And this was between Brett Kavanaugh and Dianne Feinstein from California. And it's actually a very interesting conversation for more than one reason. And this has to do with the term in common use. And this is a real interesting one because it doesn't just speak to this particular nominee, but it actually may be pointing to a strategy, a legal strategy that Democrats may be trying to push in the future. But here's the exchange, and then we will talk about it on the flip side. Check it out.
I think we're on totally different wavelengths. I'm talking about your statement on common use, as common use being a justification, and assault weapons are not in common use.
And Justice Scalia's opinion used that phrase. Then I think the next sentence of the opinion talked about dangerous and unusual weapons. And the court in Heller itself, the Supreme Court, struck down a D.C. ban on handguns. Now, most handguns are semi-automatic. That's something that not everyone appreciates. Most handguns are semi-automatic. And the question came before us of semi-automatic rifles, and the question was, can you distinguish as a matter of precedent? Again, this is all about precedent for me, trying to read exactly what the Supreme Court said. And if you read the McDonald case, and I concluded that it could not be distinguished as a matter of law, semi-automatic rifles from semi-automatic handguns, and semi-automatic rifles are widely possessed in the United States. There are millions and millions and millions of semi-automatic rifles that are possessed, so that seemed to fit common use and not being a dangerous and unusual weapon. That was the basis of my dissent. In a nutshell, the basis of my dissent was I was trying to follow strictly and carefully the Supreme Court precedent. And I know you've read the opinion.
You're saying the numbers determine common use? Common use is an activity. It's not common storage or possession, it's use. So what you said was that these weapons are commonly used. They're not.
They're widely possessed in the United States, Senator, and they are used and possessed, but the question is, are they dangerous and unusual? They're certainly dangerous. All weapons are dangerous. Are they unusual? And given how prevalent they are in the United States, it seemed under Justice Scalia's test, and if you look at the majority opinion in McDonald, the same thing.
Okay, so let's break down a little bit of what's going on here. So the conversation that's taking place has to do with his dissent, Brett Kavanaugh's dissent in the assault weapons ban in Washington D.C. Their assault weapons ban. The majority voted to uphold it, and he was in the minority, and he voted to his position was that it should be the ban should be struck down, and he used as his test the idea of whether or not these firearms were safe and in common use. Matter of fact, I'll read a little bit of his opinion to you. Here it is. Let's start from the very beginning of it. There we go. Okay, here we go. It says, in Heller, the Supreme Court held that handguns, and the vast majority of which are semi-automatic, are constitutionally protected because they have not traditionally been banned and are in common use by law-abiding citizens. So what he's noting here in the very beginning of this is that these firearms are in common use. That's part of Heller, right? So in other words, she's trying to say, well, the firearms that are in common use, well, most handguns are by her definition are not used. Many of them are purchased and they're, I don't know. Well, let me clarify. I don't know what she meant by used. Did she mean fired? Because now you're talking about something really kind of off because, well, you can use a firearm in a commission of a crime and it creates a penalty, an additional an added on penalty, but you don't necessarily have to fire it in the commission of the crime. Just brandishing it, just possessing it. The mere possession of it is, in fact, a thing. It is an action or an activity. In particular, for example, if you conceal carry. I conceal carry every day. So I am using my firearm. If I have my firearm in my gun safe, if I have whether it's my shotgun or my AR or my whatever firearm it is, if it is in my safe and I am using it, I am depending on it as a part of my home security or my safety plan to protect my family, well then guess what? Yeah, it actually is in use, even if I am not firing it. All right, so the first thing that he did was that he wanted to note, and he wanted to tie in that first part. So he wanted to first kind of denote that that what the Heller decision said, that they're safe and in common use. And that was specifically relating to semi-automatic handguns. Now he continues. He says there is no meaningful or persuasive constitutional distinction between semi-automatic handguns and semi-automatic rifles. Semi-automatic rifles, like semi-automatic handguns, have not traditionally been banned and are in common use by law-abiding citizens for self-defense in the home, hunting, and other lawful uses. So once again, you can see here, he's pointing to the idea that it's not just, for home defense, for hunting, because they are used for hunting, as well as for other uses like sport shooting or just taking to the range and practicing. So this whole thing that they're trying to do technically is trying to address the issue of common use and say that possession is not common use. Whereas in his case, what Brett Kavanaugh is saying is, well, yes, possession is use. Having it available, it's like saying, well, you're not really using a car if you just possess it and you drive it every once in a while. Well, yes, you have it and you're possessing it. And that's what, in the end, the whole Heller, his whole dissent came over when it dealt with that. Because once again, he continued here. He says, moreover, semi-automatic handguns are used in connection with violent crimes far more than semi-automatic rifles are. It follows from Heller's protection of semi-automatic handguns that semi-automatic rifles are also constitutionally protected. So once again, what he's noting here from the evidence presented in the case, semi-automatic rifles are not, long guns are not generally used in crimes. So if you were going to make an effort or make a case to ban something that is dangerous, in other words, not safe, well, your case would have better been made for handguns, but then you have the whole common use thing. But for rifles, that's not the case. But what Dianne Feinstein is doing is devious. It's devious because she's recognizing that if the idea, if any of these assault weapons bans ever actually make it to the Supreme Court, that there's going to be a fundamental problem. It's going to be a fundamental problem because they're going to have a very hard time arguing that semi-automatic rifles are not in common use. Think about it. They are the most commonly owned rifle in the country. They are the most popular rifle in the entire country. How are you going to argue that they are not in common use? Of course, she would also argue that semi-automatic firearms, period, are not in common use, ignoring the fact that the sales of semi-automatic handguns far outpace those of revolvers. But none of that really matters to her. Her whole argument is she wants to make it so that, no, these things are not in common use. Laying out a very, very devious attempt to lay out a path forward for people to be able to argue against the Second Amendment when it comes to certain long guns that they don't like. And that's really what it's all about. It's certain scary-looking long guns that they happen to not like. That's the reason why we always have to pay attention to these things. And that's why we try to pay attention to them so that you don't necessarily have to, and then we can give you the 411. That breakdown, and by the way, I just want to make sure to give a heads up. This one, Dave French from over at National Review, he's the one who really kind of broke this one down. And honestly, I'm really just kind of taken from the stuff that he shared. I'll provide a link to that, to his kind of commentary on this thing as well. But I really do think it's important that we understand these things. And, especially when it comes to some of the stuff that's going on in court, I see and I hear all the time, and I get messages all the time, Craig, why isn't FPC doing this? And why isn't FPC doing that? I wish I had the amount of time it takes to really help you to understand the numerous legal complexities. There's a reason why lawyer talk, I call it legalese, because there is this whole body of law surrounding both firearms as well as constitutional civil rights, and what it takes and where you have to go, and then dealing with the politics of the various courts, whether it's state or federal. I wish, and when I was sitting where you were at, I thought this stuff, well, why don't you just do this? It sounds that easy. My point to you is that I'm finding more and more it's not that easy. And if you really think it's that easy, then do me a favor. Sit down with a lawyer, pitch to them, in particular if you can find a lawyer who's expert on these issues. But if you can find, for example, a civil rights, do me a favor, sit down with them and pitch to them some of the things that you guys pitch to me, some of the things that you guys send me messages on Facebook about or write comments in our comment section. Please do it. And I think you're in for an awakening. These things is, wow. All I can tell you is that I am glad that there are people who have dedicated their lives to fighting these things in court. I tell you about them, but I'm not the one that's there fighting it in court. And I thank God for those people who give of their time and really focus on helping us to win some of these victories in court. So anyway, just wanted to chime in on that as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for participating in the Firearms Policy Coalition. Hey, remember, take a minute to join. We are a membership organization. Every dollar you donate, it goes right into the fight. Just please join the Firearms Policy Coalition. You just go to joinfpc.org. It's really inexpensive. It's $5 right now. So That's nothing for a basic membership. $5. That's absolutely nothing. And know that you'll be helping the fight for your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. That's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to tell your friends about FPC. We are the home in the fight for civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.